The alien fleet's weapons blazed through the darkness of space, unleashing horror as the human ship's hull buckled under the bombardment, the screams of its sole occupant echoing inside the disintegrating craft. Ambushed in the cold reaches between worlds, test pilot Anthony Simmons gripped the controls of humanity's most advanced starship, the Prometheus, as its experimental faster-than-light drive whined dangerously. Swarms of unknown alien attack craft surrounded the crippled vessel, their sleek warships looming like hungry predators poised for the kill. "Mayday, Mayday, this is the UNSC Prometheus," Anthony shouted into the distress beacon as another volley of alien energy beams sheared through his port engine pod. "I am under attack by unidentified hostiles. Severe damage sustained. FTL drive is going critical. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but..." The comm cut out in a burst of static. Anthony slammed his fist on the panel. He was alone, outgunned, and stranded in the great expanse. The alien fleet had come out of nowhere, ambushing him on the Prometheus' top-secret maiden voyage. They wanted the ship's revolutionary FTL drive, and they aimed to get it by any means necessary. A grim smile crossed Anthony's face. Command had entrusted him to protect the Prometheus and its secrets at all costs, even if it meant his own life. He armed the ship's self-destruct sequence with one hand, keeping the other on the thrust controls. The enemy would never take him alive, and the Prometheus would be their tomb. But today was not the day for noble sacrifices. Humanity's survival itself was at stake. The Prometheus held the key to unlock the stars and an unimaginable future for his species, the same potential the aliens sought to steal or destroy. Anthony couldn't let it fall into their hands. He diverted all remaining power to the untested FTL drive. The reactor temperature spiked into the red. Warning klaxons shrieked. Anthony gritted his teeth. This was the only way out. He uttered a prayer and pushed the throttle to maximum. The Prometheus vanished into a blinding wormhole of swirling color, hurtling into the unknown across the light years. That desperate escape jump was about to ignite the greatest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. The predatory aliens would stop at nothing to eradicate the threat of humankind's expansion. Earth stood on the precipice of an interstellar war it didn't even know was coming. As the Prometheus emerged a lifeless star system in the furthest reaches of alien space, Anthony knew only one thing for certain. He had to find a way home. The survival of the human race depended on it. Sparks flew from shattered control panels as the Prometheus shuddered and groaned, barely holding together. Anthony wrestled with the unresponsive controls, his heart pounding. The ship was coming apart at the seams, but he had to hold on just a little longer. The human outpost was so close he could almost taste it. On Earth, alarms blared through the halls of Fleet Command. Admiral Jackson stormed onto the bridge, his weathered face etched with stubborn persistence. "Sit rep now," he barked. "Sir, we've received a distress call from the Prometheus," a young officer reported, her voice tight with tension. They were attacked by an unknown alien force. The pilot managed to escape, but the aliens are hot on his heels. Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Those damn Eliani, they've been spoiling for a fight for years. Well, if it's a war they want, it's a war they'll get. Mobilize the fleet. We need to intercept those bastards before they can threaten our colonies." In the heart of Eliani territory, Fenris stood before a sea of his warriors, his voice booming with zealous fervor. "The time has come, my brothers and sisters," he roared. "For too long, the humans have encroached upon our rightful territory. They pollute the galaxy with their very presence, but no more. We will crush them beneath our heel and claim what is ours by birthright." The gathered Eliani erupted in a deafening cheer, brandishing their weapons with bloodthirsty eagerness. "To your ships," Fenris commanded. "Let the conquest of humanity begin." As the Eliani war fleet surged forward, an armada of gleaming ships filled with advanced weaponry, Anthony finally caught sight of the human outpost. With a final desperate push, he brought the Prometheus in for a bone-jarring landing. Captain Johnson was already running across the landing pad as Anthony staggered from the wreckage, his face bloody and his flight suit torn. "What the hell happened out there?" Johnson demanded, catching Anthony as he stumbled. "Eliani," Anthony gasped. "They ambushed me. Took out my engines, my weapons, everything. They're coming, Captain, a whole damn fleet of them. Johnson paled, then nodded grimly. We'll get this intel to Admiral Jackson ASAP. Well done, son. You may have just given us a fighting chance. In the depths of space, the human and Eliani fleets closed in on each other like two titanic beasts, ready to clash in a battle that would echo through the ages. The first shots were fired in a distant star system, the void lighting up with the glare of 1,000 suns as the two armadas collided. The Eliani surged forward, confident in their superior technology and numbers. But the humans met them head-on, unleashing innovative tactics and surprisingly powerful weapons that caught the aliens off guard. Admiral Jackson watched the battle unfold on the main view screen, his eyes gleaming with fierce pride as his ship scored several early victories. But Fenris was quick to respond, taking personal command of the Eliani fleet and pressing the attack with renewed fury. The Eliani's greater numbers and firepower began to tell as they gradually pushed the human defenders back, inflicting heavy casualties. Jackson gritted his teeth, knowing he was outnumbered and outgunned. But he refused to yield, constantly adapting his strategies to keep the Eliani off balance. Back on Earth, Anthony found himself hailed as a hero for his role in warning humanity of the impending invasion. In recognition of his bravery and skill, he was given command of a state-of-the-art warship fresh from the shipyards. As he stood on the bridge of his new vessel, christened the Retribution, Anthony felt a surge of drive. He knew the odds were stacked against them, but he would fight to his last breath to defend his people. Set a course for the front lines, he ordered his crew. We have a war to win. And so the conflict raged on, humans and Eliani locked in a desperate struggle for survival and supremacy. With each passing day, the casualties mounted on both sides, the toll of the war becoming ever more apparent. Yet neither side was willing to back down, both committed to seeing the fight through to its bitter end, no matter the consequences. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, and only time would tell which species would emerge victorious from the crucible of war. The war dragged on, exacting a brutal toll on both sides. Admiral Jackson watched grimly as his once proud fleet dwindled, battered by the relentless Eliani assault. But he refused to give up hope. Simmons, I've got a job for you, Jackson said, his lined face illuminated by the tactical display. We need to hit the bastards where it hurts. Anthony nodded, studying the schematics of a massive Eliani shipyard. Looks like a suicide mission, sir. It might be, but if we pull this off, we can turn the tide. Days later, Anthony's stealth ship slipped past Eliani patrols, a ghost in the void. His hand-picked team worked in tense silence as they approached the sprawling facility. Docking clamps engaged, the pilot whispered. We're in. Anthony led his squad through shadowy corridors, avoiding Eliani work crews. They reached a central computer hub, fingers flying over alien consoles as they uploaded their virus payload. Sir, a team member hissed, we've got company. An Eliani officer rounded the corner, eyes widening in shock. Anthony's heart hammered as he raised his weapon. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the alien reached for an alarm panel. Anthony squeezed the trigger. The Eliani crumpled, purple blood pooling on the deck. Anthony stared at the body, his hands shaking. Captain, we need to move. Anthony snapped back to reality, destroying the last data backups as klaxons began to wail. They sprinted back to their ship, barely escaping as Eliani fighters scrambled in pursuit. In the following weeks, Anthony watched battle reports with grim satisfaction. Eliani warships exploded without warning, their systems compromised. But the cost burdened immensely on him. Fenris raged as his fleets were decimated. Find these human vermin, he roared. I want their worlds burned to ash. Admiral Jackson seized the opportunity, launching lightning raids on Eliani supply lines. Human ships struck hard and vanished before the enemy could respond. But the Eliani industrial might was staggering. For every ship they lost, 2 more took its place. Fenris, maddened by his losses, escalated his attacks on human colonies. Anthony's crew picked up distress calls from a dozen worlds. They arrived to find cities in ruins, the air choked with smoke and ash. Eliani troops rounded up surviving humans for slave labor. Others were lined up and executed en masse. In a bombed-out shelter, Anthony found a group of shell-shocked survivors. "We're getting you out of here," he said, helping a young woman to her feet. "There's no hope left," she whispered. Anthony gripped her shoulders. "As long as we're still fighting, there's hope. Now come on." They evacuated as many as they could, linking up with scattered resistance cells. Anthony watched civilian militias train with stolen Eliani weapons, their eyes burning with vengeance. On one ravaged colony, Anthony's team linked up with guerrilla fighters who'd turned abandoned mines into a fortress. Eliani patrols ventured into the tunnels, never to return. "We lure them in deep," a grizzled militia leader explained. "Then we collapse the shafts. Sometimes we pump in poison gas. Other times we just let them starve in the dark." Anthony nodded, hardened by all he'd seen. "Keep it up. We'll make the bastards pay." The brutal underground war of attrition ground on. Eliani troops, trained for open combat, floundered in the claustrophobic tunnels. Human fighters struck from the shadows, vanishing before the aliens could respond. Fenris snarled in frustration as his invasion stalled. He was forced to divert more and more ships to protect vulnerable supply lines from human raiders. Admiral Jackson seized the moment of respite. "All ships, this is Jackson. It's time to rebuild, rearm, and show these alien bastards what humanity is made of. The next phase of the war begins now." Admiral Jackson's eyes burned with intensity as he surveyed the holographic display. The scattered remnants of humanity's fleet blinked defiantly against the vast darkness of space. Weeks of guerrilla warfare had bought them time, but now it was time to strike back. "Gentlemen, we've found their weak point," Jackson announced, his voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "The Eliani supply chain. Take that out, and their war machine grinds to a halt." Anthony Simmons stood at attention, his face a mask of drive. "What's the target, sir?" "Averin Station," Jackson replied, zooming in on a massive structure. "Their primary logistics hub. We take it down. We cripple their entire offensive." Weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Anthony's team drilled relentlessly, memorizing every detail of Eliani's systems and security protocols. Finally, the day arrived. Heart-pounding, Anthony piloted his stealth shuttle through the Eliani defensive grid. Sweat beaded on his forehead as alien scanners swept past, missing them by mere meters. "We're in," he breathed as they docked with Averin. "Remember, we're civilian contractors here to upgrade their systems. Act natural." The team moved through crowded corridors, Anthony's eyes darting constantly for signs of suspicion. An Eliani officer approached, mandibles clicking. Anthony forced a smile, praying his forged credentials would hold up. "Your identification?" the alien growled. Anthony's hand inched towards his concealed weapon. "Of course, sir. Right here." Tense seconds passed as the Eliani scrutinized the documents. Finally, it grunted and waved them through. Anthony exhaled slowly, willing his racing heart to calm. They reached the central core, fingers flying over alien consoles as they uploaded the virus. Suddenly, alarms blared. "We've been made!" Anthony shouted. "Plan B!" The air filled with plasma fire as Eliani security converged. Anthony's team responded with precision, years of combat experience evident in every move. They fought their way to the hangar, commandeering Eliani fighters in a hail of gunfire. As they blasted free of the station, chaos erupted behind them. Life support failed, defense turrets turned on their own ships, and the mighty Averin began to tear itself apart. Admiral Jackson watched with grim satisfaction as reports flooded in. Eliani supply lines crumbled. Warships drifted powerless, their crews suffocating or freezing in the void. "All ships, this is Jackson," he broadcast. "The enemy is in disarray. Hit them hard, hit them fast. Show no mercy." Human fleets surged forward, striking with fury born of years of oppression. Anthony led daring raids deep behind enemy lines, sowing confusion and terror. On a dozen worlds, Emboldened human resistance fighters rose up against their alien oppressors. Eliani troops found themselves cut off and surrounded, fighting desperately for survival. Fenris raged at his commanders, purple blood vessels bulging on his forehead. "Crush them!" he screamed. "Burn their worlds to ash!" Orbital bombardments rained down on human colonies. On Eldor Prime, Anthony watched in horror as entire cities vanished in nuclear fire. Millions perished in an instant. But where Fenris expected capitulation, he found only steel dedication. Across human space, civilians flocked to enlist, burning with righteous anger. "This ends now," Admiral Jackson declared, his weathered face set in stone. "We finish this war here and now." As the battered remnants of the Eliani fleet gathered for one final push towards Earth, Jackson summoned every ship humanity had left. In a deserted star system, two armadas prepared to clash in the battle that would decide the fate of two species. Anthony stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the looming form of Fenris's flagship. He knew what had to be done. "Sir," he said, turning to Jackson, "I have a plan to end this." Anthony's plan unfolded with brutal efficiency. The human fleet erupted into action, every ship unleashing a torrent of fire at the Eliani Armada. The void lit up with explosions as missiles and energy beams crisscrossed the battlefield. Inside the captured Eliani fighter, Anthony gripped the alien controls. "All units, commence infiltration," he ordered over the secure channel. His heart raced as they dove towards Fenris's massive flagship, weaving through the chaos of battle. Alarms blared as they approached the dreadnought's hull. Anthony's fingers flew over the console, inputting the stolen security codes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hangar bay doors slowly opened. "We're in," Anthony breathed. "Move fast, people." They touched down amidst startled Eliani crew members. Anthony's team burst from the fighter, weapons blazing. Purple blood splattered the deck as they cut down the unprepared aliens. "To the command center!" Anthony shouted, leading the charge through twisting corridors. They reached the armored core of the ship. Anthony planted breaching charges on the massive doors. The explosion rocked the entire deck, and they surged through the smoke. Fenris stood at the center of the command hub, his ceremonial blade glinting in the harsh light. With lightning speed, he lashed out at the first human through the door. The soldier's scream was cut short as the alien metal sliced through his throat. Anthony ducked behind a console as plasma fire filled the air. He popped up, squeezing off short bursts that dropped two of Fenris's bodyguards. The acrid smell of ozone and burning flesh filled his nostrils. "You dare challenge your betters?" Fenris roared, his voice filled with contempt. "We are destined to rule the stars. Your primitive species will kneel before us or be exterminated." Anthony's team slowly pushed forward, but Fenris was a whirlwind of destruction. His blade flashed, claiming more human lives as he fought with inhuman strength and speed. A stray shot caught Anthony in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled, his weapon clattering to the floor. Fenris loomed over him, blade raised for a killing blow. With a desperate lunge, Anthony grabbed the alien's arm. They grappled furiously, crashing into consoles and view screens. Fenris snarled, bringing his blade down. White-hot pain exploded across Anthony's face as the alien metal carved a deep gash from forehead to cheek. Blood poured into Anthony's left eye, blinding him. He roared in pain and fury, summoning every ounce of strength. His hands found Fenris's throat, squeezing with animal desperation. Never underestimate the savage apes," Anthony growled through gritted teeth. There was a sickening crack. Fenris went limp, his blade clattering to the deck. In the sudden silence, Anthony staggered to the main control panel. His remaining eye scanned the alien symbols until he found what he was looking for. With trembling fingers, he input the override codes. Across the battlefield, Eliani ships suddenly powered down their weapons. Anthony's voice crackled over every frequency. "Fenris is dead. The Eliani fleet is under our control. Stand down immediately." On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Jackson watched in disbelief as the mighty alien armada went dark. A cheer rose from the crew, quickly spreading to every human vessel. But as the initial euphoria faded, the true cost of their victory became apparent. The scarred and battered remnants of humanity's once proud fleet drifted amidst the debris of countless destroyed ships. Reports streamed in of the devastation wrought on human colonies. Anthony oversaw the surrender of the Eliani forces, his face a mask of pain and exhaustion. As he watched the alien crews being led away in restraints, he knew the war might be over, but the real work was just beginning. In the coming weeks, a new Eliani leadership emerged, one that sought peace rather than conquest. But for Anthony and his fellow veterans, the scars of war ran too deep for easy forgiveness. They remained vigilant, knowing that in this vast and dangerous galaxy, the next threat could be lurking just beyond the stars.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.